Hey, shalom, shalom. First off, I'd like to say, call halal, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors to the apostles, bishops, elders of Great Millstone who taught me. Also would like to say peace, blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect, the Akim, that's pushing his word in all sincerity and faith throughout the four corners of the earth. For the Akwap, the sisters who watch and believe, shalom to you as well. Shalom to the new fruit, the new believers, the new viewers that's coming into this faith. And just back with another lesson. This is just a more character building lesson about just having, etiquette, because as a body of believers, especially in these times, we're going to have to come together and we're going to have to embody the spirit of charity. When you go into that word charity, it means agape love, all right? To where everyone is willing to distribute what they have to where no one goes without, so to speak. All right. And it's rules of engagements for both parties, whether the Lord puts you in a position to host brothers, or if you've been welcomed as a guest, you've been invited to a brother's place. Okay. So, Lord willing, this to edify. I'm gonna just do a little nature walk and read some scriptures, and Lord willing, this to edify. But I'm gonna start here in Romans, the 12th chapter, and at verse 9, and it says, "Let love be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil, cleave to that which is good." All right. So we gotta have a sincere love. Like I said, that agape love, it goes into charity. All right. Willing to distribute, willing to take the load, for your brother. All right. Just so you can put him on even playing field, so to speak, where basically he doesn't have to go without. All right. Especially if you have the means to restore him that's in need. That's a sincere brother. All right. It says, "Be kindly affection one to another with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another." All right. So we always go into, you should see Yahweh Shai in your brother. All right. As far as the way we deal with each other, the way we treat each other. All right. Not being in the spirit to be selfish. Okay. Because some brothers may have a little more than others. Some may have a little less. But if we're all willing to prefer your brother, it all works out. But it says, "Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord." And slothful means to be lazy. Like I said, if everybody's doing their part, it shouldn't be a reason for collectively as a body, for individuals within the body to go without. It says, "Rejoicing in hope, patience in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer." And then here's the point here in verse 13. It says, "Distributing to the necessity of saints, given to hospitality." All right. So especially in the times that we're in right now, it's going to be about distributing to the necessity of the saints, because brothers going to need basic necessities, especially as resources draw thinner, as this system collapse. And it says, "Given to hospitality." All right. Which means, if you got the ability, you may have to host, whole class or fellowship, or you might have to put up a brother that's visiting, or whatever the case may be. You might have to go pick a brother up, give him a ride. You might have to give a brother some money, or whatever the case may be, But you got to just be in the spirit to distribute if necessary. All right. That's just covering that aspect of charity, that agape love. That's how you really show love towards your brother. All right. But I'm gonna get the next one real quick. This is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7. It says, but the end of all things is at hand. And that's the time we in right now, man. All right. Esau is the end of the world. Right now, Esau's rulership, all right, is the present situation. Like it says in 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter. All right. Esau is the end of the world, meaning an age of rulership. And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So the end of this current rulership is at hand. All right. It says, but the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer. All right. So I'm going to read it again because I just kind of walked by some people and kind of lost my train of thought. But I'll read it again. 1 Peter 4:7, it says, but the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And it says, and above all things, have fervent charity amongst yourselves, for charity shall cover a multitude of sins. And they're just going back into that agape love I was talking about for your brother. All right. Because in showing that agape love, that charity, we cover a multitude of sins, which we all have sins that need covering. All right. We're all in this sinful flesh. All right. So we all need a covering. So just through the aspect of charity, you can cover a multitude of sins. Continuing on, here's the point in verse 9. It says, use hospitality one to another without grudging. All right. So especially in these times we're in right now, like I said, as resources are becoming more difficult to come by. All right. As this system collapses, you know, certain brothers are going to be without. All right. So collectively as a body, we got to be willing to distribute according to the measure that the Most High has given us through the Spirit. All right. Without grudging, you know, doing it, being a cheerful giver, doing it willingly. All right. Knowing that by doing such, you cover a multitude of sins, and also too, that we're storing treasure in heaven. All right. So like, that's one aspect right there. Just being in the spirit of hospitality. All right. Being willing to distribute. But there's another aspect of it also too for the receiving end. All right. Because it's beautiful getting an invitation, you know, to a brother's home, you know, especially if a brother, you know, he may have certain things that makes it pleasant, you know, food, drink, just a comfortable environment, you know, to where brothers can fellowship, study, pray, you know, all the above. There's a certain level of etiquette and manners that you have to show as being a welcome guest. Okay, we can't be niggardly, you know, whenever, you know, you receive an invitation when a brother is being hospitable, you know, because you don't want to basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Offend a brother to where that'll put him in the spirit to where he don't want to be hospitable because maybe you didn't clean up before you leave. You know, you may have drunk too much and threw up all over the place. You know, you may have been too loud, you know, just whatever the case may be. You just got to be mindful of how you conduct yourselves as even being a guest as well. So that's the aspect I wanted to get into as well. And for that, what's this? Proverbs, I think it's a Proverbs 25. I'm going to get that in Proverbs 25 real quick. This is Proverbs. Yeah, Proverbs 25:17. It says, withdraw thy foot from thy neighbor's house, lest he be weary of thee and so hate thee. All right. So you got to be able to have a situational awareness as being an invited guest to a brother's house as well. All right. There's a such thing as wearing out your welcome. I'll read it in the NLT, Proverbs 25:17 in the NLT. It says, don't visit your neighbors too often, or you will wear your welcome out. All right. So clear to the point, man. All right. So it's beautiful when a brother invites you over. All right. Maybe a brother pick you up or something like that. But you can't take advantage of brothers either. You got to show appreciation when you get invited with a brother doing something for you, when a brother being hospitable towards you, you know, by just showing a certain ethical, just showing etiquette, basically, manners and respect and appreciation, not being a nigger, thinking that you're entitled to receive hospitality. All right. But just going on to the next script. Let me see. I'll just read this one right here. Matter of fact, this is Sirach or Ecclesiasticus 31. And let me see. Y'all start at verse 12. It says, if thou sit at a bountiful table, be not greedy upon it, and say not, there is much meat on it. All right, so we can't be in the spirit of being greedy either. All right, so what? We all like to eat. You know, we know brothers can cook and make delicious foods and things of that nature, but you got to be able to show restraint. All right. Even if you got to put something on your stomach before you go to a brother's house, you know, just so you're not too hungry, just so you can show more restraint. Be in the spirit of prudence to do that. Eat something before you go there. All right. Don't just go show up to the brother's house on complete empty. All right. But it says, if thou sit at a bountiful table, be not greedy upon it, and say not, there is much meat on it. So you, just because the food is there, you already been satisfied in your appetite. But just because it's there, you know, you taking seconds, thirds, to go plates. All right. That's a bad look, man. That's very niggardly. All right. It says, remember that a wicked eye is an evil thing, and what is created more wicked than an eye, therefore it weepeth on every occasion. It says, stretch not thine hand whither so it looketh, and thrust it not with him into the dish. Matter of fact, let me see, because I know it was in the GNT I was reading it. I'm gonna just read it in the GNT, because I know just some of the way it's worded can be a lot easily comprehended. This is Sirach 31 and 12 in the GNT. It says, when you sit down at a fancy banquet, don't let your mouth hang open, and don't say, look at all the food. It is impolite to have a greedy eye. So, you know, that's impolite, and it's probably of sin in some sort to have a spirit of being greedy, man. All right, of course, you know, a brother's gonna get full, we're gonna eat, you know, we're gonna drink wine and things of that nature. There's nothing wrong with that, you know, but just always be mindful, okay? You gotta be able to show restraint, all right, when it comes to appetites, physical appetites. It says, it is impolite to have a greedy eye. Remember that. Nothing in creation is greedier than the eye. That is why it sheds tears so often. It says, don't reach out for everything you see, and don't elbow people out of the way to get at the food. So even when the chicken is ready, when the food is ready, the lamb, you know, it's hot off the grill, you know, like you can't show no restraint. You knocking brothers out the way. You pushing brothers out the way to get to the food instead of showing restraint, instead of just waiting. You know, maybe waiting for brothers to start making plates, or maybe waiting to other brothers eat first, maybe to let the apostles, let the elders eat first, and then you come in, you know, behind them. But you reaching first for things, man. That's a bad look as well. All right. But continuing on, it says, hold on. I was on verse 14. Don't reach out for everything you see, and don't elbow people out of the way to get at the food. Be considerate of the other people at the table and treat them the way you want to be treated. So also considering too, that when you eating, just because it seemed at that time like it's a lot of food, you got to be considerate. Hey, has everybody eaten? You know, have the apostles, the elders, all the Akim eating? You got to even consider that, hey, it may be, it's earlier in the day. It may be other brothers that are not present that may show up later. They want to have something to eat too. So you got to be mindful, okay? It says, when you get your food, eat it like a human being. Don't smack and slurp. Nobody can stand that. It's good manners to be the first to stop eating. All right. So just basically having basic manners, man. You know, not smacking and spitting, all right, talking and eating at the same time, all right. We're the nation of Israel, man. We're a holy people, so it's rules of engagement. We're supposed to have a high level of etiquette around each other, man. Of course, we're men, so we're not going to be all dainty as women, but we still got to have a level of order around each other, man, even when we're fellowshipping, eating, drinking, so on and so forth, all right. It says it's good manners to be the first to stop eating, so that's another example of showing restraint, because it's discipline at the end of the day. All right. It says stuffing yourself is offensive. So being greedy, it just goes back to that offense. All right. Just because it's there, you don't got to be greedy. Okay. Because the Lord ain't really dealing with that spirit of being greedy. Okay. But continuing on, it says, it's good manners to be the first to stop eating. Stuffing yourself is offensive. If there are many people present, don't try to be the first to be served. All right. So being considerate. All right. Allowing others to go before you. That's just having basic manners. All right. And excuse me, I was just ran into like some people, so had to kind of pause, but I'm gonna try to pick up where I left off. Salakia. It says, verse 18, if there are many people present, don't try to be the first to be served. All right. So be considerate and allow others to eat before you, especially if there are great men, if there are older men, i.e. the apostles, elders, it's an order to how we do things, man. It says a little bit is plenty for anyone with manners. So it says, besides, you won't be short of breath when you go to bed. So I think the point's been made there. All right. And I'm going to get the 32nd verse too. Just going more into manners. I'm going to see how it reads in the GNT. Matter of fact, I'm going to read it in the King James. Because we can't forget about old King James. We can't forget about our Uncle King James. Sirach 32 and Sirach 32 and let's see. Sirach 32 and I'll start at verse 9. It says, and this is in the King James. It says, if thou be among great men, make not thyself equal with them. And when ancient men are in place, use not many words. So that goes especially for younger brothers, even myself included, when we're around, greater, older men in this faith, i.e. the apostles, the elders. All right. You don't make yourself equal. All right. You don't get in the spirit of being, what's the word I'm looking for? We used to always use. Damn, that word's escaping me. It's escaping me right now, but don't use many words, man. So don't be trying to talk the apostles' ear off. All right. Just use few words. Really, the spirit to be in is answering when you speak and when you spoke to. OK. All right. But it says before the thunder goeth lightning, and before a shamefaced man shall go favor. So just being in the spirit of humility, especially around, older men, wiser men in the faith. All right. It says, rise up betimes and be not the last, but get thee home without delay. So going back to wearing out your welcome, man. Like if you at a brother's crib, we fellowshipping, having a good time. You don't want to just shut the club down, so to speak, man. Even though a brother might not say nothing, just because he's in the spirit of being hospitable. But if it's getting late, 2, 3 in the morning, you steady pouring drinks. You didn't open up another bottle that was already closed. You could you're not reading the room. You're not having the situational awareness to see that the brother's getting tired. All right. He didn't ask you what you about to do like 4 or 5 times. And that's going straight over your head. All right. But it says, rise up betimes and be not the last, and get thee home without delay. So don't be the last man at the party, if possible. Which through the spirit, sometimes you may be the last person, you know, left standing, you know. But if that's the situation, you should be in the spirit of like cleaning, you know, helping the brother tighten things up, get everything, reset. But let's see, was it something else? I'm trying to think if it was anything else. Let's see. I think it was verse 11. I was going to try to see how it said it in the GNT. Yup, Sirach 32 and 11 in the GNT, it says, leave the party at the right time and never be the last to go. Don't linger at the door, just go straight home. There you can enjoy yourself as you wish, but don't commit the sin of bragging. But so the point's been made, I think, right now, especially in the last days, we're that much more closer to Yahushua returning upon this earth to bring destruction and deliver the elect of the nation of Israel. So we definitely got to be in the spirit of being hospitable and charitable. But at the same token, those that are on the receiving end of that hospitality and charity, you got to be considerate. You got to show a spirit of appreciation. All right. You got to show a level of etiquette. OK, when you're extended in a gracious invitation to be a guest. All right. And at the end of the day, it's all about just mutual respect for each other as brothers. So with all being said, Lord willing to edify, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushua, Bahashim Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, elders of Great Millstone. Shalom, peace and blessings to the elect.